Hello, this is the Captain Paxo, welcoming you back to the weekly hunt. Finally decided on an actual name this time. This is the third episode in the series, so third week I've been doing this. And as you can see by my character, I did the Aloy event. I actually did all of the events this week. Some of them were kind of pointless, like the what was it called? The Coral Waltz, where you had to take out every single high-ranking monster in Coral Highlands. I mean, it was fun, it was tough, but it didn't really give me anything. It didn't give me anything exciting, I suppose. Like, nothing I couldn't have gotten by just doing investigations, you know? But this is just me fighting xeno'jiiva to try and get some armor, you know? Try and get some of that. I think the only decent xeno'jiiva piece is actually the chest, which gives Constitution, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just trying to get that, and of course, always need the xeno'jiiva materials because there's so many weapons that require them, you know. But yeah, the event. So I did the Aloy one to get the Aloy armor and bow. They're pretty cool. I like the way that it all looks. I think they did a pretty good job. Never played Horizon Zero Dawn, so I can't say too much on the higher level of detail. But from what I can tell, it's pretty darn accurate. And the bow itself, not that good. Is not that good. I mean, you get the close range coating, which every bow gets, and you get the paralysis coating and the poison coating. Which paralysis, both of those are really good, but they're not make or break, you know. Like, if you want raw damage, then you're gonna want power coating, and if you want a bow that does incredibly well at sort of crowd controlling or just controlling a monster in general, then you want a bit more than just paralysis and poison. In fact, arguably, you don't really need poison if you're going for a more controlling bow. So it's more of a kind of does everything style bow, jack of all trades, master of none. Emphasis on the master of none, you know. But it's still decent. It'll still get you through the game. But if you're concerned that like you're missing out on some really powerful weapons and armor, like, the armor itself is, I mean, it's good in terms of defenses and stuff. It gives you some very roundabout defenses, but in terms of the perks you get, they are not good. You get like Scent Hound and stuff like that. It's just, in general, there are a lot more useful perks. It's pretty much just the ability to look like Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. That's pretty much the only purpose of it, you know? Which is pretty fun in of itself. But like I said, you're not really missing out on too much. But this is me fighting the Anjanath to get the things, the materials needed. And also some bonus materials, because again, need a lot of that Anjanath stuff. Need a lot of that everything stuff, you know? It's ridiculous. Slowly building up our arsenal of armor. I'm still very unfocused in what I'm farming. I always do a little bit here and a little bit there, and I seem to be focusing more on the weapons than the actual armor themselves. But at some point I really need to sit down and just focus on getting a full set, like the Odogoron set. Like the Odogoron has a really powerful set, and I have most of the pieces because Odogoron's one of those monsters where both the alpha and the beta sets are really useful just for different things, you know. The alpha set has a lot of, say, a lot more affinity, a lot more like critical eye and stuff like that, whereas the beta set obviously has the extra gem slots. And I have a lot of the alpha set and not much of the beta. I think this is another event fight as well, where you've got Radoban and Odogoron in the arena, which is a bit nutty, considering they both love jumping around. So Lock-on is kind of your friend for monsters that jump around a lot, and the zero-sum discharge is pretty much your enemy. Like, Just a friendly word of advice. If you're using the switch axe and you have your sword form fully charged, unless the monster is immobilized for one reason or another, you know, they're exhausted, they're paralyzed or something like that, don't go for the zero sum discharge, because they'll just knock you off instantly, you know. But the events were pretty much just a break from me trying to get the Ancient to spawn, and in getting the Ancient to spawn, I got this Bristly Crake, which is a trophy, and 800 research points, which is just insane. It's like, oh my god, what? Wasn't even trying to get it to spawn, I was just trying to get the Ancient to spawn, which I did get eventually. It took so long. It felt like it took 10 hours. It was probably more like 5, but it took way too many tries to get it to spawn. Just jumping into an expedition, checking this little pond, and then leaving. That just rinse and repeat over and over and over and over and over. It was boring as shit, but I've got it now, so I don't have to do it again. And completing the trifecta of rare endemic life, I also got the Phantom Bird to spawn to complete the endemic researcher quest, or they're downy crakes technically speaking, but the Phantom Bird nonetheless, which are worth 200 points each as well, so they're pretty hefty. If you see any of these creatures roaming around, it's definitely worth picking them up, because it is a lot of research points, you know. But yeah, the zero sum discharge, if you don't know, when you charge up your sword with the switch axe, and you do the elemental discharge where you like jam your sword into the monster and you do a bunch of hits and it leads up to this big explosion. If you've got your sword charged, then you latch onto the monster. The problem with that is that if the monster does an attack using that limb, or rather that part of the monster's body becomes an active hitbox, it'll just knock you straight off. So you gotta be careful when doing that, because you will take a lot of unnecessary damage, and it's just, oh dear. You need to know when to use it and when not to use it, because it is a lot of damage. But it's kind of like the Charge Blades Ultra, you know. If you use it at the wrong time, you're gonna take far too much damage. Which, speaking of Charge Blade, I'm kind of practicing my guard points here, which is why I'm fighting Baroth, and I ended up fighting Diablos as well. Because guard points, they're a lot of fun to do. They're not too particularly hard to do either, depending on the monster that you're fighting. If they've got a lot of telegraphed attacks, then they tend to be pretty easy. But it's more, for me, it's more of like the getting the Ultra off and the red sword attack, where like you charge your sword and you do the attack at the same time. I just can't do it, man. I'm so bad with the Charge Blade, which is kind of ironic considering that the Charge Blade was the first weapon that I used for any extended period of time on my original character, you know. That was the only weapon I used for like 20 hours. And to be fair, I didn't know about the red shield or red sword buff, so I wasn't trying to go for them, which kind of made it a bit easier to use the Charge Blade, but also a lot less effective. You know, using the red shield, kind of undecided on if the red sword is really worth it, but the red shield is definitely worth it. It's incredibly powerful, giving you that like ultra amped elemental discharge. But it's got a long wind up. It really leaves you vulnerable. So, I don't know. Now that I've learnt how to use the Charge Blade correctly, I've honestly gotten worse at using it, so that's going to be a fun weapon to try and get good with. It's going to be a lot of inevitable frustration ensuing, because I can't get those guard points down, man. I just can't do it. Might just stick with the switch axe for a while, because I'm really liking the switch axe, you know. It's such a powerful weapon. Like, another little tidbit that I've figured out is that you can actually you can detonate the elemental discharge, not the not the... Yeah, the elemental discharge. Not the zero-sum discharge, but the elemental discharge. And if you do that, well, the explosion can stagger monsters. So if you fired off the elemental discharge at an incorrect time, or a monster's about to attack you, you can just manually detonating it by holding back on the analog stick relative to your character, and then continuing to tap triangle. It'll detonate it early, and it can stagger monsters out of their attack. It'll stagger them out of their animations. Just that little trick has saved me so much damage. It's saved my life so many times. It's ridiculous. I'm really enjoying the switch axe, but I really need to start using some of the other weapons so as I don't get locked into the switch axe, because I do want to use all of the weapons, and I kind of want to get at least somewhat proficient with all of them. I mean, I might not be amazing with them. I don't think I'll ever be great at using the charge blade, but I want to be able to at least use it to a competent level, you know. As we're fighting Radoban, which honestly might be my favourite monster, you know. Like, I think because I fought him, because, well, yeah, you fight Radoban before you fight Uragaan, and I didn't know about Uragaan before I played Monster Hunter World, because this was my first real Monster Hunter game, you know? So Radoban to me was super unique, even though he is pretty much just a clone of Uragaan. But in my eyes, because of course I saw Radoban first, I'm like, hey, Uragaan's a clone of Radoban. No, it's the other way around. Uragaan came out first, Radoban's new. But, you know, it is what it is. I just like the way that, like, in my eyes, he's pretty much just a wannabe Monster Hunter. I mean, think about it. He collects bones of dead monsters that he uses as both armor and as a weapon, and he sprays his, like, tranquilizer gas on you, and then sleep bombs the shit out of you with his massive chin. You know, his hardest hitting attacks. It's just ridiculous. I love it. He's the wannabe Monster Hunter. Oh, God. But that kind of brings me on to, like, I love hearing about what people's favourite monsters are. Not so much the what, because, like, I can see every monster in the game being somebody's favourite, but more the why. The why is so much more interesting as to the what, because you could say, oh yeah, Dodogama's my favourite monster, but why is he your favourite monster, you know? Is it because he's blue and you just really like the colour blue? Is it his massive underbite, which you find hilarious? Or is it the fact that he eats crystals and he churns that up and turns that into, like, bombs, essentially, blast? He fuses it into his jaw and he can just scrape it along the ground and it'll just create blast blight. Like, how cool is that? You know. Also, his armor's pretty damn good, and it does kind of resemble Dodogama in a sense, because you look at the headpiece, and it does kind of look like a bit of an underbite. That trade, by the way, with the greatsword on Diablos, traded with his head swipe attack and broke his horn, and then we managed to cut the tail off. The greatsword is one of... I say this about nearly every weapon, but the greatsword is one of my favourite weapons. I just love how powerful it is. It can do so much damage, but you're also not defenseless whilst you're charging stuff up thanks to the tackle. You know, I think if I tried to use the greatsword in previous Monster Hunter games, I'd have a much harder time, because the tackle's new as far as I can tell. So I just have to think, like, man, life of a greatsword user must have sucked back in the olden days. Or I suppose it's just a completely different meta, isn't it? It's not that the greatsword was bad, it was just a different meta. And I think it was like critical draw, but I don't know. God, look at me spamming that tackle. Just spamming that tackle, trying to level up the charges, trying to hyper armor through shit. God damn. I always forget about the block with the greatsword. It's such a useful ability to just be able to block. But you can't really do it whilst you're in the middle of an action. Like, if you do a tackle after, to interrupt your charged attack, or even if you just do any sort of attack, you have a really long time before you can block. You kind of have to roll and then block. But even then, it's kind of like, if you're not careful, you're going to get hit out of your roll and you're going to take a lot of damage. But yeah, the favourite monsters, like, I really like hearing what people's favourite monsters are. I mean, everybody can say, like, oh yeah, like, Diablos is my favourite monster. And, you know, I can kind of see why, say, Diablos would be your favourite monster, but it's like, why is it your favourite monster? Like, I can see it being someone's favourite monster, but I want to know why. Is it, like, the fact that he just tunnels underground and he, like, does the burrow strike towards you? Is it, like, his Diablo horns or his tail that kind of look like Diablo horns as well? Like, is it, like, the kind of Triceratops wannabe head crest thing? Like, I love hearing people's reasons for why certain things are their favorite, because you always get a different response. You always get some new insight that you never thought of. Like, I never thought about the fact that like, I don't know, fucking what's another monster? Odogaron. Like, I never thought of the fact that, like, Odogaron's claws kind of, they get a little bit bigger. They kind of raise up when he gets enraged, and he just becomes a lot more ferocious, or something like that. It's not a great example, but you get what I mean. You know, someone will have something really interesting to say about a certain monster that you just never really thought about before. You know. So that's why I'm gonna ask the question, like, what is your favorite monster in Monster Hunter World? Or maybe not favorite monster, because there's a shit ton of monsters in this game that are super badass and super awesome and super fun to fight. So, you know, favorite few monsters, and the more important question is, why are they your favorite monsters? Why do you enjoy fighting them so much? What is it about their design that is just so interesting to you, you know? Or maybe it's their weapons, maybe it's their armor that you really like, you know? Maybe it's the terrain that they fight in, or maybe it's something completely arbitrary, like the music. Well, it's not really arbitrary, is it? Because speaking of music, I really like Basil Goose, Basil, whatever, Basil, that guy. I really like that guy mostly because of his music. You know, he comes out of the nowhere, and you just get the really aggressive violin. Is it violin? I'm not too sure what the musical instrument is. That my lack of musical knowledge is showing right here, but it's just the really aggressive, just and you just know that he's there and he's coming to just bomb the shit out of everything and just make a bunch of explosions. Just Michael Bay explosions, and then he just buggers off. He's like, my work here is done. My planet needs me. He's so random, he's so sporadic, he loves just coming in, interrupting your fight with whatever monster you're fighting, just making a massive mess of things, and then just leaving. And it's just, it's so random. I love it. But I haven't actually fought him properly yet. Like, I've got my current assignment is to take on the 2 tempered Basil Gooses, and I'm kind of thinking, I haven't even fought a single one properly. I tend to just sling some shit at them and be done with it, you know. I generally just go, I don't really want to deal with this right now, or if I do let him stay, then I just let him do a shit ton of damage to the monster I'm fighting, and then he leaves. I very rarely actually fight Basil Goose. So fighting the 2 tempered Basil Gooses is going to be pretty interesting, to say the least. And hopefully very fun. I've heard they tend to bomb the shit out of each other, though. Like, they kill each other, which will be absolutely hilarious. Oh, dear. But yeah. Oh, God, the Charge Blade. I'm not good with the Charge Blade. I love doing the guard points. I find them really fun. Because guard pointing does do a little bit of damage. It's not a lot of damage, but it is some damage, and it reduces the oh god, I'm stunned here as Diablos goes underground, and I'm gonna die. Yay. That's pretty much why I stopped using Charge Blade, because I suck at it, quite frankly. Like, I want to get good with it, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. Because it's such a powerful weapon, it does so much damage, and it's got a ton of utility with the guard point and the mobility of the sword and the reach and damage of the axe. But I can't do it, man. I can't do it. I need more practice. But I thought I was done with the low rank armor. Turns out I'm not. I have to do some arena quests to get the rewards from them to build the rest of the low rank armor, which is what I'm doing right now. Just doing a pukey arena quest. And what else did I do? I did another arena quest, a Kula Yaku. I did a couple of those to just try and get some rewards. I'm not a big fan of like getting timed for fighting monsters, because it puts a lot of pressure on me, and just generally getting timed in games, yeah, it just puts a lot of pressure on me. I make more mistakes and I get more frustrated. And I get that I get that pretty much every single mission in Monster Hunter World is timed, but most of those, I mean, the assignments are all like 50 minutes, and the shortest it will be for an investigation is 15 minutes, which is still plenty of time if you're kitted out properly. You know, like I was fighting a tempered Duratotus, and it'd still take me, like, even though I was like farming the tracks that it left, it still only took about like 10 minutes at most. But these arena fights, they want you to do, for the highest score, they want you to take out the monster in like 2 or 3 minutes, which I'm not good enough to do that, especially with some of the weapons that they hand out. Which I feel like they're trying to promote diversity in people's playstyle with these loadouts, because you can't just choose a loadout for your particular weapon. There's only like 5 loadouts, so it might be like a sword and shield, a lance, a great sword, a hammer, and like a bow or something like that. You know, you only get 5 choices, so you do have to mix things up a bit, which is why I'm using the sword and shield in this arena quest, because I really want to get good with the sword and shield. I think it's going to be the next weapon that I start to pick up. It's just that right now I don't have any high rank sword and shields. Like, I just haven't upgraded my sword and shields enough to really warrant using them in high rank, because they just don't do enough damage, you know. But at some point I am definitely going to get into using the sword and shield, and I'm going to have a lot of fun, because as much as I was under a lot of pressure to get the ranking for this arena quest, I did have a lot of fun using the sword and shield. And the little bits that I have used the sword and shield, initially I wasn't too fond of it, like I had a bit of a hard time, but the more I've used it, the more entertaining I find it. It's kind of like the greatsword, you know. Initially I found it quite unwieldy, but now that I'm getting used to it and getting used to like monsters' attacks and timing my counter attacks and all of that sort of good stuff, I'm starting to have a lot of fun with it. And I think the same kind of thing will happen with the sword and shield, you know, but only time will tell. But see, speaking of diversifying my weapons, I'm kind of thinking of doing this thing where I use one kind of weapon for the entire week. So at this point, I've kind of done most of the assignments, so to kind of keep things fresh and interesting for the videos maybe, or just myself as I try to get everything, I might as well, because I'm trying to get everything, I might as well try and learn how to use all the weapons properly. Like I said, I want to get at least competent with the charge blade. Not that that's going to really happen, because I'm a fucking scrub when it comes to charge blade. But I want to try, and I think a good way to do that is to just play with that one kind of weapon for an entire week. So I kind of thought, well, maybe I could have like a week of the great sword, or a week of the dual blades, or something like that. And I thought, if I got Because if it was up to me, I'd probably just do like week of the switch axe, week of the bow, week of all the things that I've used before. So to make it maybe a bit more entertaining for you people watching, cast your vote on what weapon you want to see me use, you know? I'll probably just leave a comment down below and you can reply to that, like which weapon you want to see me use, and I'll do my best. I might be a complete scrub, I might do okay, I might enjoy the weapon, I might hate the weapon. We'll find out after I've used it for a week. Because at current, my least favourite weapons, probably dual blades and charge blade. Like, I've used a decent amount of those two. Well, not huge amounts, but a decent amount of them. Enough to know that maybe they're not for me. Maybe I'm really bad with them and I should just maybe not use them. I don't know. But I do want to get good with them. And I do, of course, want to diversify myself, just trying different stuff. You know, because what's the point in making all of the weapons in the game if I'm not going to use any of them, you know? That just seems like a complete waste. If you're wondering why I'm beating up on a poor Pukey here with a greatsword, well, materials, obviously. But what am I working towards specifically? Well, I wanted to upgrade my Pukey insect glaive, because that is the weapon that I use to cheese xeno'jiiva. Because it's super easy to cheese xeno'jiiva with an insect glaive, because you jump in the air and you just fly around twiddling your spear, and he has a really hard time doing any damage to you, and I don't really enjoy the xeno'jiiva fight. So what are you gonna do? I'm just gonna cheese him with an insect glaive. Especially considering, like, I need a lot of horns, because of course his armor requires horns, and every xeno'jiiva weapon requires horns, and there are a lot of weapons that aren't specifically xeno'jiiva weapons, but they require xeno'jiiva materials. Most of those require xeno'jiiva horns, so I need to break the head a lot. And realistically, the only two ways I'm going to do that is either with a ranged weapon, or an insect glaive, because his head is always just that little bit too high above you. You're either in direct line of fire from one of his breath attacks or just his trample, or you're not in front of his head. Because when he does lower his head, it's generally just not for long enough for you to be able to do much damage. Like, I tried using a hunting horn to break his head, which is actually one of the longer ranged weapons, or it's one of the longer reaching melee weapons in the game, especially vertically. You've got some really good vertical range, but I still could barely hit it, and I was getting very frustrated, so I just went back to the fucking insect glaive, you know, because I just find it to be better, or just easier to use, and I don't particularly find the xeno'jiiva fight particularly interesting, so might as well do the least interesting thing in return. I don't know. Just makes it easy, just easy to cheese, so I'm using an insect glaive. And he's weak to poison, so I'm like, hey, Pukey insect glaive, because it might not do the most damage, but the poison damage definitely adds up, you know. As I do build some stuff. Hey, there's the Wiggler head. That ridiculous thing that I got from the Wiggler quest. And money is always a sore spot in when it comes to trying to build everything, because stuff gets so freaking expensive in this game when you get to the later stages. So what I've been doing is I've been setting up my Argosy to just get trade-in materials, because trade-in materials are, well, they're items that you just sell. They have no purpose other than for you to sell. So I get the Argosy to get me a bunch of stuff that I can sell, all the trade-in items, and then I go to the provisions stockholder, or whatever his name is, and I just sell every single trade-in item that I get, because I need the money. And with that money, I can make some cool things. It's just, I just don't have enough money. Like, I'm looking at the trophies list, and there's a trophy for possessing a million Zenny, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna get 100,000 research points before I get a million Zenny. In fact, I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna get the million Zenny because I've got so many things to get, so many things to upgrade, it's just so many things to buy. It's just ridiculous. I'm never gonna get enough to get that trophy, you know? But it is what it is. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Because it's kind of funny that the research points trophy is just to obtain 100,000 research points. You don't have to own 100,000 research points. You just have to earn 100,000 research points. Because I got that trophy when I had like 75,000 research points. And I was like, hang on a second. Read the description. Oh, obtain, not possess. Just a key difference in the wording there. With that newfound money that I got from the provision stock, I fully upgraded my Baroth switch axe. My Baroth switch axe, which makes me very happy. Gonna be doing a lot of awesome work with that. And you might have noticed, actually, I was using the Jaw sword, the Jaw greatsword, which basically means that I've fully upgraded the bone greatsword as well. Which again makes me very happy because that's one less thing that I have to upgrade. Another question for you guys: Do you want me to show off Zora Magdaros and xeno'jiiva every week? Because whenever their quests pop up, I am doing them. Because if I don't do them, then I'm never going to get all the materials that I need to make everything, you know? I'm just going to pass them up, and then all of a sudden I'll have everything, and I'll just be twiddling my thumbs going into expeditions and coming back to try and get the xeno'jiiva and Zora Magdaros missions to spawn, you know? So I'm doing them whenever I can. So I am doing them. You didn't see any Zora Magdaros missions in this one because it's boring, isn't it? However, you will see the xeno'jiiva fight because it's the first time I did it. Speaking of xeno'jiiva and elder dragons, this is the Nergigante fight where we actually won. Didn't manage to get a lot of it. Only managed to record the last like minute of it, but we killed Nergigante. Sweet. I just joined someone's queue and yeah, kind of cheesed him because my armor's actually a lot more upgraded. I got a lot stronger armor now. I can actually block his one-shot move, which is a lot of fun. But after Nergigante, I then took on Teostra, and I like Teostra. I had a really fun time fighting Teostra with the lance. It was kind of a good back and forth, you know. I felt like a really good sense of challenge, a strong sense of pride and accomplishment. No, I did though. It's a really fun fight, and as much as he sets himself on fire and he sets me on fire, I'm still having a good time, you know, using the Odogaron lance, which I'm kind of thinking of changing up. I'm not too sure how I feel about it, because it does have really good affinity. However, its sharpness isn't the best. You know, it does get white sharpness, but you can't upgrade the sharpness. So the best thing you can do is just get speed sharpener, and when you're using the lance, you don't really get a lot of opportunities to back off and sharpen your weapon, because you're constantly in the monster's face, you know? So I'm not too sure how I feel about the Odogaron lance. We'll see what happens, like, to the crit chance, or the affinity rather, if I start using stuff like weakness exploit and critical eye and all of that sort of good stuff. Because I might actually change it up, because we might end up with some excess affinity points. You know, I might end up with like 120, which at that point I might as well use the Kulu lance, because at least then I could unlock the hidden element and start sleep bombing monsters, you know, because it has the hidden sleep. Or I could use the Rathalos lance, or I could use something that doesn't have any crit on it at all, you know. The choice is mine. The world is your oyster. As Teostra has now fallen asleep, this is a little bit later, gotta get that cool drink on. We haven't got anywhere where we need to use hot drinks. I wonder if that'll change in the future, you know. Because at the moment, it's just there's one very specific place where we need to use hot drinks, and that's just in the inner interworkings of Elder's Recess. as I fail to flash pod Teostra before he kills me with his supernova. Round 2, fight! Because I had actually, up until this point, I had actually managed to flash him out of every single one of his supernovas. It's just at that point, that one, I was in a really bad position, and unfortunately, I had just started the counter thrust, so I got by it, but it's no big deal, you know. We've still got plenty of retries. I think I still got 2 at this point. Not too sure, but either way, Teostra's almost dead, and it's... And I don't want to say it's not intense, because Teostra is... He's not super easy, but I'm kind of relaxed around him as a Lance user. Because I can use his aggression against him. That's one of the cool things about the Lance, is just using a monster's aggression against them. The more aggressive a monster is, generally the more openings they have for counter thrusts, and the more opportunities you have to deal a lot of damage to them. And it... Oh, it's very satisfying to take everything a monster can throw at you and just turn it against them, you know. But I did end up fighting Teostra 2 times, because I wanted to get the Teostra hunting horn, because it's actually a very good hunting horn. It has all ailments negated, divine protection, and like abnormal attack increase, so it increases the amount of status damage you do. Some really good melodies right there. I mean, the abnormal status effect doesn't affect blast, but it does affect stuff like poison and paralysis and sleep. So it's still pretty useful there, but primarily the reason why I wanted to get the Teostra hunting horn is because I wanted to use that all ailments negated against Valhazak, because I've heard that effluvium buildup is really nasty, and I've seen it as well, both first and second hand. It just completely halves your health, and it's pretty nasty. So here I am using the Teostra hunting horn, getting a couple of those blast blocks off, but it's nothing super fancy. But I'm not a big fan of Valhazak at the moment. I think it was just the fight that I was in. It's kind of like Nergigante, because Nergigante scares me because I haven't actually beaten him solo yet. I think if I if I beat Nergigante solo, then he wouldn't scare me as much. But because I haven't, he fucking terrifies me. But Valhazak, he kind of wailed on me really badly in this fight, and I haven't fought him since, so I think I just have a bitter taste in my mouth from when I did fight him, because he's just throwing me around like his plaything. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I am getting these songs off, I am getting a little bit of damage off, but I'm just getting very frustrated at how often he's hitting me, because I'm just a bad player, you know? I've run out of healing items. I'm down to potions at this point. This is really bad, you know? It's not good. I mean, I've got the right equipment for the job with the hunting horn, but I think I need... Oh, watch this, by the way. So I go to sleep bomb Valhazak, and the fucking Gyros just wakes him up. Such is my life, you know? Goes to set up barrel bombs to sleep bomb a monster, and something wakes it up, and I'm like, God damn it. That's so much damage I could have gotten. Instead, it's kind of not as much, because you get really excited when you put that barrel bomb down, because you know it's just going to do a ton of damage, and then they wake up and you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. But thankfully Valhazak set off the other barrel bomb, so he took that damage thanks to himself. I need to get earplugs on my hunting horn, because I keep getting interrupted, like my melodies keep getting interrupted by monsters roaring, and it's incredibly frustrating, so I definitely need to get earplugs. So I think for the next time I fight Valhazak, I'm going to have earplugs, especially because whenever he roars, he reels back, roars, and then he falls straight forward. So if you're anywhere in front of him when he roars, you just get hit. As I knock my desk again. I'm really bad at doing that. I do apologise. But literally, every time he roars, if you're in front of him, you're going to get knocked by him just falling on you. You know, it's quite frustrating. Whereas if you do have earplugs, you can avoid that. So maybe bring the Nergigante hunting horn. No, I want to bring the Teostra hunting horn for that all status ailments negated. But now we're on Kushala Daora, which I quite like. I like Kushala. She's not too bad. I mean, the wind pressure can be a little bit frustrating. I'm not sure if it does actually get negated by poison. I know that it used to in other games. That's something that I keep getting, or people keep mentioning, is that like poison was the way to go with Elder Dragons in the past, but now it's like Elder Seal. So I don't know if poison still works or if it's just a scrub thing to use. But either way, Kushala's very weak to poison, so I am currently using a poison setup. I'm using the ore switch axe, the metal one. I've just fully upgraded that, which gets the poison file, which is pretty cool actually, and it's also got a hidden element of poison. So I've got this current setup where I'm just trying to do as much poison damage as possible. So I've got 3 elements, and I've got a bunch of venom jewels as for my decorations as well. Later on, like in a future build, I'll take off the hidden element, and I'll just be focusing on like focus and quick sheath and just doing the file damage like as much as possible to yeah, just do poison. Had a lot of fun with it because again, poison damage, it does add up, but I'm not too sure if it's the most effective thing to use against Kushala. Like it might actually just be more effective to just use an Elder Seal, you know, get rid of all that wind pressure as it starts, all the tornadoes start whipping up, and oh, this is getting a bit scary. Oh god. I hear a lot of people really like to use ranged weapons against Kushala because it pretty much just ignores all of the annoying wind pressure. Oh god. Because it does get very frustrating after a while, and if you get knocked into one of those wind tunnels like I just did, it can spell the end of you, because you can just get stunned from the wind pressure, and then the wind pressure again, and then Kushala can roar, and then there's more wind pressure, and then she just kills you. You know? So it's a little bit scary, but at the same time, it's not too bad. You know, I prefer Kushala Daora to Valhazak, at least for now anyway. I might change my mind when I fought more of both of them, but as it stands right now, I prefer Kushala. But here we go with xeno'jiiva, and me just cheesing the shit out of him with the insect glaive, because I cannot be bothered to fight this boss normally, because either you're just doing damage to his toes or his tail, because his head is just too far out of reach, you know. And just as a general rule of thumb when it comes to big bosses, whatever you do, do not give them toenail damage. And what I mean by toenail damage is when the boss walks into you, he can deal damage and he can stun you. I fucking hate that. I hate that in Dark Souls, I hate that in Bloodborne, and I really hate it about xeno'jiiva. You know, he can just walk into you and it'll do a little bit of damage and it'll stun you. And when you get stunned in any of these sorts of games that I've just mentioned, you know, like Dark Souls and even against xeno'jiiva and Monster Hunter, you can get killed because of it, you know. Just because he decided to put his foot in a very specific part of the arena, he touched your body, your character, your player model, your hurt box, whatever, and you get staggered, and then he does an attack and you die. I really do not appreciate the boss walking being a hitbox. It really pisses me off. It just, something feels really cheesy about it. But what can I say? I'm cheesing the shit out of Xeno'jiiva. I mean, this loadout is called Xeno'Cheese because I just don't enjoy this fight, so I'm going to cheese the shit out of him as much as possible. Which it has given me an excuse to use more of the Kinsect glaive. Well, insect glaive technically, but you might as well call it a Kinsect because that's what they are. They're Kinsects. They're not insects, they're Kinsects. I mean, they're technically insects, I suppose, but they're called Kinsects, so why not call it the Kinsect glaive? I guess it's a little bit more confusing. I don't know. There's some toenail damage and some more toenail damage. Thank you very much, Xeno'jiiva. You are an absolute G. How you got your toenails so sharp, I have absolutely no idea. Please teach me the ways. Really not a big fan of it. But what can you do, you know? This guy's huge. He's absolutely massive. Of course he's going to do toenail damage. It's just how things go. Did my insect just fucking block Xeno'jiiva's ranged blast? That was insane. I'm gonna have to watch that back, but I think I just fired my Kinsect as Xeno'jiiva fired his blast attack, and the two collided in mid-air. My Kinsect is a beast. He just took that hit for me. My god, what a baller. God damn, I need to learn the name of the Kinsect that I'm using. It's the one on the bottom tree, like all the way down at the bottom. It's the blunt, Kinsect that does the blast dust effect, and it's like the fastest. It's got the highest speed. It comes off of the blunt healer tree. I can't remember what it's called. I need to learn it, because it is my current favourite Kinsect. Because one of the things that I really like doing with the Kinsect is I like just spamming a monster's head with it to try and KO it, because the glaive itself, of course, does sever damage, so you can use that to cut off a monster's tail, but if you have a blunt Kinsect, then you can use that to KO a monster, so you've got a bit of everything in there, you know? Also, another really nice thing about using the Kinsect glaive against Xeno'jiiva is his tail is so big, it makes it very easy to self-sustain, because you throw the Kinsect on the tail, and then you bring it back, because when the Kinsect hits the tail, the effect that it gets is healing. It gets a green effect. You bring that back, and it heals you up. So it's actually really good for self-sustain, so just in general, yeah. How to Xeno'Cheese, bring the poison insect glaive with a blast Kinsect that has like stupidly high speed. The more astute of you might have noticed that there's one guy in this room that's using a wide range build where he's using a lot of buffs and all that sort of stuff, which is really cool to see. I haven't seen too much of that. Oh, this is quite cool, by the way. So I really need a lot of Xeno'jiiva horns, and off of this reward, I managed to bust the head and not do much else. But we've gotten one horn from the carve so far. Make that 2 horns, 3 horns. This is a different Xeno'jiiva run, by the way. And then from the quest rewards, or the bonus rewards rather, we got another 2. We got 5 horns, which is a fantastic. Because like I said before, everything requires horns. Just everything. It's ridiculous. It needs so many horns. Like, even the non-Xeno'jiiva weapons. Like, there are a lot of weapons that require Elder Dragon parts, like the poison insect glaive, the Pukey insect glaive. That requires Valhazak parts, even though it technically, well, it isn't a Valhazak weapon. It does require Valhazak's parts. And I believe the Kulu Yaku bow, I believe that requires Kushala Daora parts. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the Legiana hunting horn definitely requires Kushala Daora parts. You know, so even though there might not be like those monsters' weapons, they do still require those parts. So when it comes to Xeno'jiiva and Zora Magdaros, well, not even Zora Magdaros, because the only things that require Zora Magdaros pieces are his weapons, his armor, and his charms. When it comes to Xeno'jiiva, it's his weapons, his armor, his charms, and other weapons that aren't even related to him. Thankfully, it seems to me at least that xeno'jiiva quests pop up a lot more frequently than Zora of Magdaros. I mean, I had one instance where I completed two of the xeno'jiiva quests, and once I completed that, he then appeared again, so I then got to do another 2 xeno'jiiva quests, which is just fantastic when xeno'jiiva is my least favourite fight in the game. It's just gravy, isn't it? I really don't like xeno'jiiva. That's just a personal preference, though. I don't enjoy the fight. I like the way he looks. I love the story implications, but I just don't like the fight in general. He's way too big, has way too much life, and is way too much of a nuisance for my liking. But that's just my preference. You might love him. You might think he's the best boss in the game. I would just have to disagree with you quite strongly. You know. But doing a bit more Odo Garon, because I need some of those goddamn gems. I need a lot of those goddamn gems. I need a lot of all of the gems, and I also need some more Odo Garon armor, as my sets are changing a little bit. I'm starting to get a bit more powerful of an anti-Odo Garon set. I'm starting to think, well, you know, if I just get the bleed charm level 3, then I don't have to have any bleed resistance on any of my pieces of armor. I can make way for literally anything else, you know, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing. But of course, before that, I should probably get some more I need Odo Garon armor anyway, because it's actually a pretty good set, and of course, like I said, I'm trying to get everything. We've heard this a million times. You can shut up about it. But I'm gonna need to farm Odo Garon for that, because the bleed resist charm needs Odo Garon gems. So yay! Lots of Odo Garon farming. He might end up being my most farmed monster. I'm not sure about that. I don't know. It's really hard to tell. As I'm fighting a tempered Duratodus with the poison switch axe, which I'm a big fan of, but it might be another Jagras switch axe scenario where actually it's pretty shit and I just should not use it. I should just use anything else. But as of right now, it seems to be quite an effective weapon, and I'm really enjoying it, especially with the 3 venom charms that increase your poison damage. Because I know there's a cap on the amount of damage you can do with elemental damage, but I'm not too sure if that's the same case with status damage. But either way, whenever I put on the venom charms, I check just to make sure that like my poison damage is actually going up, and with every single one of them it goes up a significant amount. Like with the first one, I think it goes up like 30 points, the second one it went up with like 20, and then the third one it went up with 40. So it, you know, it was building up, so it seems to be really effective. I'm just not entirely sure if I want to do free element with the with this weapon to get even more poison damage, or if that would just be kind of poison. Yes, it would be a lot of poison. I'm not sure if that would be pointless, because then what's the point in having the poison file if I can just do poison with the axe form? Like, surely I should just... I don't think there is a switch axe that does this, but surely I should just go for a switch axe that has a poison hidden element, and that has something like a power file or something like that, you know. Surely that would be a lot more effective than just using a poison file one that uses the free hidden element to get more poison damage. Maybe I should put on the elementless damage, because I don't think that'll be affected by the file charge. I'll have to test that out, actually. I could be wrong, but I could be right. If I am right, then that's a lot more damage than this weapon could be doing. But of course, if I'm wrong, then, well, this build isn't really going to change much in the future. But it's still good fun, you know. It's always good fun to try out different weapons and all that sort of good stuff. So I think next week I will. Yeah, next week I'll try and do like a week of the something or other. I'm not too decided on what sort of weapon I'll do just yet, so I'll check out the comments before I make a decision. And with that, I think, again, we shall end off with my updated guild card. I've kind of gone for a bit more of a float like a butterfly, sting like a bee kind of thing. You can see just how much more of the switch axe I've used since the last time. I've nearly got 100 quests completed. I kind of want to get all of the weapons to 100. I think I've mentioned this before, but it makes me think that like I'll be able to say, okay, I've used each of the weapons for quite an extended period of time, and after all of that, I can safely say that these are my favourite ones. These are the Palico info. The only thing I need to level up is the Gadulaka Unity. Everything else is maxed. Feeling pretty good about myself. Got a few more trophies. Got our Tempered Monster. I think the other hidden trophy next to that Tempered Monster trophy is just like 50 Tempered Monsters, but I'm not too sure what the one is after like the Downy Crake and the Bristle Crake. I don't know. I'll look that up at some point. And hey, we've done some arena quests. Look at that. Didn't really do too well though. Haven't gotten an A yet. So, B for butter, am I right? And the crowns. We got a gold giant crown for Anjanath. And I think we've got a gold crown for the pink Rathian as well. About 200 hours into this character now, and I still have not gotten a fucking miniature crown. Where are they at? Where are they all hiding? They know I need one. They're just not fucking spawning. Anyway. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.